Welcome into the Inquirer podcast. Jeremy Werner, Derek Piper, New York City skyline behind us. We're at Madison Square Garden covering a basketball game, and it was a pretty great one. As Illinois defeats number 2 Texas, previously unbeaten Longhorns, 85-78 in overtime. Derek, they come back from a 10-point second half deficit with 8-9 minutes left in this game. Show the resilience. But you're wondering in those closing minutes, can they do enough to close out a victory? Something they weren't able to do against Virginia, something they weren't able to do against Maryland after getting behind, making that comeback. But they find ways to close in this one. What was different about Illinois basketball tonight in one of the biggest environments in basketball against one of the best teams in college basketball?
Well, the way Matthew Meyer played got you there because, I don't know how the heck that Illinois came back where they were going a 9-minute stretch of 2 points. And they're down 10 with 8 to go. But, yeah, you get to the point of you're in crunch time. You have that momentum coming back where you're getting stops. And Sincere was really great defensively. And I thought that was a big key as well. And Jaden Epps gets another crack at shooting a three with less than a minute to go. And that one goes in from the corner, then gets fouled. It's a really bad foul by Jabari Rice deep in the backcourt, which put him on the line, chance to tie the game. And even Chris Beard tried to ice him a little bit by calling the timeout in between the two. But he makes both of those. And that's a guy Brad's been trusting late in games and thrown out there and obviously paid off. And then overtime, Terrence Shannon just finally awakened. Now, I understand that while he might not be himself here, taking the shot to the eye and has been having to battle through that, but then he just turned it on in overtime. Illinois defensively really elevated. I know we've been talking going into this about the 12 blocks. The way that they're defending in the paint and shutting down the guard tandem, which was a big storyline going into this game of Tyrese Hunter, Marcus Carr. For them to go 7 for 25, that's a duo that put up 42 against Gonzaga when they blew them off the floor, and only to hold them to 19 was a pretty big deal. So Illinois just seems like they're never dead. Like the UCLA game looked like they're going to get run off the floor in Vegas. The Maryland game came back and had a chance to win it. And then this one, same storyline, but like you said, it was just different. And that they executed and made the plays to win. And that was really good to see.
Yeah, this team, Derek, I think we have seen big picture of this first couple months, right, is this team is capable of beating anybody anywhere. Like they have had 4 ranked opponents away from State Farm Center, and they've had a chance to win all of them in the closing minutes, despite some real stretches of bad basketball. They're able to overcome those things, and they got resilience. They got toughness. I thought Terrence Shannon showed toughness and resilience tonight after a terrible start to do that. Matthew Meyer, after a bad start to the season, has the performance he has that we'll dive into more here. Jaden Epps, after a rough end of the game against Virginia, after a rough end of the game against Maryland just a couple days ago on the East Coast, for him to step up and hit those free throws to get a big bucket when Texas got within 1 in overtime, just shows that this team – is resilient and has toughness, but then it's really talented. Like Terrence Shannon and Coleman Hawkins, and Hawkins was a beast on defense tonight. Both of those guys are potential NBA draft picks, but Meyer's got a chance too, and he reminded us of that tonight. And then you have a couple guys, especially Jaden Epps and Sincere Harris, who are showing they ain't scared, right? And RJ Melendez had a really good second half. I thought, again, he's got a chance to play tonight. This team is deep. It's got talent. And when you throw resilience and toughness, and I hate to do the John Gross, there's some togetherness there of this team. And I thought Matthew Meyer gave a good quote to Joey. He said, I didn't know if this team would be this good now, but you're seeing them grow. You're seeing them learn from some of their mistakes. And the scary thing is, Derek, this team doesn't feel like it's even firing on all cylinders yet. And that won't always happen. But it's great that when you don't have a great performance from Terrence Shannon early, you can find a way to still compete in this game and find a way to win at the end.
Yeah, they still have a lot to figure out and a lot further ways that they can go as far as offensive execution and just cleaning up some self-inflicted mistakes in terms of turnovers, defensive breakdowns, and some stretches where they play some really ugly basketball. But like you said, they're talented enough. They got some older dudes guiding them, and Shannon and Meyer steps up tonight and is one of those guys. You got to throw Hawkins in there. I think Hawkins is a leader and someone that is a steadying influence. And like you said, just fantastic defensively. There's a reason why NBA people continue to talk about him, and that's reason number one. And then for your freshmen to just be tough as heck. They're just tough dudes. Epps Sincere Harris to belong on the court against one of the most athletic, one of the most talented teams, and one of the most experienced teams out there in Texas says a lot about him. And checking Marcus Carr late in the game and was all over him and shows up with a big block and goes to the rim and gets fouled. Same thing Jaden was driving against a really, really good defense that was shutting down Shannon and clogging up the lane. So, yeah, this is a team that still has so much more room to grow and figure out things. And I didn't think they would come away with 2 signature wins like that with UCLA and Texas. And it speaks to where they can ultimately go. And while they can still pick and choose, all right, we got to work on this and we got to react to, like Brad was saying, Virginia, like we couldn't get stops and we needed them. So then we got to address this. They can take those learning lessons, but then stack some meaningful wins on your resume. That's really all you can really ask for.
And I think you're seeing Brad, some of his early decisions paying off. The Maryland of putting Jaden Epps, Virginia putting the ball in Jaden Epps' hands. That paid off tonight because Jaden still wasn't scared. He was still attacking the hoop, and that pays off tonight. But I thought Brad made an interesting point. Dana O'Neill from The Athletic asked him about how different it is for him. I mean, this is kind of unscripted chaos at times for this team, and it can go badly when they turn the ball over, when they have bad shot selection. But we'll get into Meyer here in a second, Derek, but you got a guy who can go get a bucket. You got Shannon who can go get a bucket. Epps can go get a bucket. And you have these spurts where you look like you're potentially the best team in the country because this is so much different. It doesn't have to go to Kofi Coburn every play. It doesn't have to be a ball screen with Ayo DeSumo and then other guys standing around him. There's so many more options that Brad Underwood is adjusting to this, and I think he's adjusting really well. I mean, this is what he wanted to play, but, man, it's fun to watch when it's clicking.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I thought we were going to have this podcast and say, what in the hell were they running in the second half? Because, I mean, the answer was nothing. They weren't running anything. And part of that freedom is intent. I mean, a lot of it's intentional to let your skill be able to stretch the floor and read and react. And a lot of that cohesion still has to marinate and maturate as you go on with guys knowing, okay, in this situation, I'm going to cut here. And this pass, like there was even a time where Coleman throws a dart down the middle of the lane because I think it was either Sky or Jaden cuts. And when the defender's not looking, he's like, I'm going to make that pass. But they weren't looking for that. So I think that there's still a lot that needs to come together because it can get really ugly. And there'll be nights where they don't come back from that. And there will be games where they're going to play someone that's not all that highly rated and things are going to go off the rails and they'll take a loss that they shouldn't take. But
Penn State Saturday at 11 a.m. Like you got to show up for that one, right? Because that could be a sleepy Saturday after a big win.
Yeah, absolutely. But to be able to have the talent and the skill to, Matthew Meyer just go nuclear like that, and Shannon, and just all that athleticism and length and everything it's hard to have answers for when it's going well. And defensively, when they can turn that into momentum and get going offensively, it's a team that's really scary.
Yeah, they had 17 turnovers during the first 35 minutes tonight, 0 in the last 9 minutes, and Texas had a bunch of turnovers late. Illinois' defense, which we'll get into, we thought at some point Matthew Meyer in one of these early games would win you a game. And while he didn't have to do it all late, he won you a game today with what he did in the first half, making his first 7 shots of the night, season high 21 points, made all 5 of his 3-point attempts, also had 3 blocks. I thought he was really good defensively tonight. This is the Matthew Meyer who is top 20 transfer. Some places had him top 10 transfer. And you saw the isolation ability, the ball handling, the ability to get separation, Derek, and fire a 3 over somebody. This ain't going to happen every night, but he's capable of it, right? And that's what's scary is as good as Shannon and Hawkins and Epps at times, Melendez at times, Matthew Meyer is one of the best players on this team when he's clicking, when he's right. Now, can he stay right? I don't know. But the fact that you have that in your chamber is a good thing to have.
I mean, to not have that many indications of that was coming. But again, the pedigree and the resume is there for him. It's someone that's played a lot of high-level basketball. Now, last year it wasn't all that efficient, over the grand scheme of the entire season. But he's had the ability to just be an absolute bucket getter, be a guy that is a difference maker on a winning team, and to have that kind of out-of-body experience at the Garden against the number 2 team. And he said it, the perfect story of one from his hometown. Austin, Texas native, doing it against Texas, number 2, doing it against Chris Beard, who he's seen a lot in the Big 12. And man, that was the step back threes, and just to feel it like that when his team needed him. I mean, just the contrast of the guy we saw in College Park who got 2 fouls in 4 minutes and made no impact on that game. And yeah, he's got the ability to be a difference maker, and the reason why he's making a brink truck full of NIL money, like that's why you go after that hard after him in the portal, and that's the guy that they thought they were getting.
I asked him afterwards because he'd been talking about his shot wasn't going in. He needed to see it go in. He goes, I just came here. I didn't care. I didn't care if I missed. I asked him like the first one going in at Mary. He goes, I just didn't care. He didn't eat before the game. He said he wanted to fast before it. It's a different cat, man. But he's just a different cat. He's differently wired. Like he shouldn't not eat before the game, but he said he did it before practice, so he wasn't late to practice, and he felt good, and it went in. And man, he's just one of those X factors in college basketball. And again, you can see him doing that in the NCAA tournament game. Let's go to defensively, Derek. I think that's the other story of this game. As you said, 7 of 25 for Tyrese Hunter and Marcus Carr, 19 points between those two. Timmy Allen got them, but he took 18 shots to get to 21 points. He was great distributing the ball, 8 assists to 2 turnovers today. But they kept everybody else in check, and their front court was kept really silent. Disu had 9 minutes tonight. Dylan Mitchell looked like a freshman tonight, 4 points, had 1 big dunk, but that was it. Christian Bishop wasn't that big of an impact. Like Brock Cunningham was kind of their other guy making big buckets down the stretch. So what was it about them defensively that you're able to limit a Texas team that can be pretty good at times offensively to really in an efficient night, even though they scored 78 points in 45 minutes?
They got a lot tougher in the paint, where there were stretches there in the middle, early second half. Texas was really racking up the points in the paint, and it seemed like they were just able to continually get the ball and to the front of the rim and be physical and draw fouls. And Timmy Allen ended up with a great night, and there's a big reason why he was able to do that mid-post area and be able to get it in there. But they hounded Marcus Carr, made things tough for him, made him take tough shots. That looked like a struggling Marcus Carr at Minnesota against Trent Frazier. And unfortunately for him, he kind of had the reincarnation of him guarding him late in the game with Sincere Harris was just obviously younger and obviously less proven and is not the player of Trent Frazier yet, but longer, number 1 with the headband.
He can jump through a freaking gym, man. Like just that explosion he has is just ridiculous. Like I saw somebody texted on here on the live chat here. He's Illinois basketball's version of Spoon, and we've talked about that. Like he's just energy. He was a plus 13 tonight in 18 minutes. That led the team. Plus 13, like plus minus and everything, but he always makes a positive impact, and that's a huge data point for that. When he was on the court, Illinois was better. That's a huge credit to a freshman, Derek. We didn't know what his role was going to be. Like if you would have told me Sincere Harris is going to make a bigger impact, be more college ready than Ty Rodgers, that's insane. And Ty's going through it right now. But again, depth. The fact that you can go through a Ty Rodgers struggling start to his career, and you got another guy in Sincere Harris who can kind of make the impact you were hoping Ty would.
Right. I would have never thought that Sincere would be that much more of a guy you'd trust at this point. And look, Ty's still a very talented dude, and we're not going to erase the fact he's on Team USA this summer, and he's going to figure it out. But Sincere, I mean, it just speaks to his approach, which he's just going to play 100 miles an hour and play hard and be gritty. And he's a big time athlete, and throw some weight on him as you go throughout his college career. He's got a chance to, as you said, Tajay Moore, that type of mold. So he was someone that turned it up for Illinois in that comeback and was worthy of those minutes on the stretch to stay in the ball game too. So I think that, look at Texas. If you can keep them out of transition, number one, you stop turning the ball over. You don't let them run as much. You make them play in the half court and make them shoot some threes. It's not the best 3-point shooting team out there. And especially when you make life tough on their guards, they were able to do as over the course of the game. That led to being able to get stops. And I was looking up the KenPom numbers. Illinois now, they're 15th in the country in block rate. And they're like they're darn near top 10 in 2-point field goal percentage defense. So we keep going back to it. Like they don't have that 7-foot guy in the middle, but this team with their athletes can really make it tough for you when you're able to, you're trying to score around the rim. They got dudes who can go up and get it.
12 blocks. That was 2 shy of a program record against the number 2 team in the country. You did that. Meyer, 3 blocks, really long. Coleman Hawkins, we all know 3 blocks for him. Sky Clark, Jaden Epps had 1. Dane Danger, great length. He's one of the, I think, best blockers in the Big Ten right now. Ty Rogers had 1. Sincere Harris had 2. Right. And RJ Melendez really affects shots. He had a block tonight. Yeah, big one late. We have a block, a steal, I believe, on one of those. Like, they all came up big at some point. I feel like everybody contributed to this win, whether it was Sky with a 3, that was like a James Harden move. He had a rough night with the turnovers, but RJ Melendez made some big plays late. But that defense there, the length, the switchability. Michael Tulip texted me today, said, I think those guards might struggle with that, these Texas guards, because you said they don't shoot the 3 as well. They certainly did. Like, this is a tough defensive matchup, and it's been pretty consistent throughout the year. I'm sure they're top 15 right now in KenPom and defensive efficiency, but their ability to alter shots, get in the passing lanes, certainly is something different than we have seen in years past.
It definitely is. When you switch like that and you take away driving lanes off the pick and roll and everything, you really – you take away some of what teams want to do and get in rhythm, and all of a sudden you're trying to create an angle and it's not there, and you got a different guy on you who is just as tough to get by because of the way they can laterally move and the length, and when you can gravitate towards the lane, which I think that they've done a really good job at for the most part. They're still making some mistakes. They're still leaving some shooters. They're still messing up some switches and rotations. But again, that kind of comes back to still that room for them to grow and hit their ceiling, which – those Baylor teams. Now, I don't know that this team will be as good as those Baylor teams defensively, but they kind of have some of the same makeup in terms of the switchability and versatility. It's when you
Brad loves Baylor teams.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
He's stealing players from us.
Some Baylor dudes. When you can get comfortable with playing in that kind of like scramble mode where you can, there's a breakdown here, but then the help defense can get there and recover. Some of that is still going to come along through the season, but so far, there's still so much to like. They can turn you over. They can contest at the rim. Yeah, it can be one of the top defenses in the country. And even early in the season, just their athletic makeup is making up for that and proving that.
Terrence Shannon looked like the stitches above his right eye were bothering him. His shot was off. 1 of 8 to start, airballed a couple more. It was really forcing things. I don't know if that was because of all the NBA scouts here or whatever it was, whether it was Texas. But, man, overtime, he was fantastic. Had, 12 of his 16 points in overtime. What did you see differently there, Derek, in overtime for him? But most of all, he showed a clutch closer ability, right? Like, you've seen Io do it. You've seen Trent do it. You need Shannon to be that guy who can go get you buckets, make free throws, and he did that in overtime tonight, even if first 40 minutes for him were really ugly.
Yeah, he said after the game that he listened to the coaches who were trying to school him on how they were defending him, slow down a little bit, understand when you drive, that lane's going to clog up and collapse. They're coming off the corners, and he was more patient where just took 2 dribbles in, hit that pull-up jumper early in overtime and got rolling there. But, yeah, I think he was pressing. I don't know about the NBA scouts could definitely be a factor, but he just knows how much this team needs him. Like he's a go-to guy and someone that needs to step up, and obviously looks like he's not himself right now because of the eye. I don't know if it's messing with his. It's not over his actual vision or anything like that, but it's something that's affected him when he shot 2 air balls tonight, 2 air balls against Maryland. But to be able to stay the course and understand that, hey, there's a chance to go win this game, and he was huge in overtime.
I've mentioned it before, but it's nice to have 2 freshmen top 60 guards when you are top 50 by 24/7 Sports. Sky Clark, not the greatest performance tonight. 5 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist, but he had the 4 turns. But Jaden Epps was fantastic late in this game. Didn't start off great, but he was fantastic late. Both those guys, I think, are going to be really good. But Epps at some point is going to lead this team in scoring. I'm going to keep saying that because he is fearless. He is dynamic in that he can score at every level. And he's just got balls, man. He does. He's got that gene. He's got that clutch gene in him. He's not scared. He's a big-time player. And, we wondered about freshman guards, how they would handle this. There certainly are growing pains. There will continue to be growing pains. But you're starting to see why Brad Underwood went with the talent, the freshman. rather than maybe a transfer who's a solid guard, right? To have that kind of guy like Jaden Epps, I don't know how many guys you're getting in the portal that would, Tyrese Hunter maybe, but Jaden Epps was as good as Tyrese Hunter tonight, right? Like he was really dang good.
Right, and there's going to be some moments, and we've seen sometimes where the lack of a veteran point guard, you would like maybe to be able to have someone that could be a steadying influence or be able to create some offense when things really get off the rails there. But yeah, Jaden down the stretch was awesome, and he's a tough SOB, man, which is not surprising being a Chester Frazier targeted recruit and someone that he sought after there. So yeah, I love what Jaden's shown. He's been able to earn that trust down the stretch. I think that Sky still is someone that as you go deeper and deeper into the season, going to get more comfortable and has the ability to shoot. I mean, the long range bomb that he hit for three was a really good play. His turnovers wise, he still has some issues and got to clean some of that up. He had 4 tonight, but I agree with Brad. I know that after the Maryland, in the Maryland game where Sky hits that late 3 and he makes the change, it's like, okay, was that the?
I was just curious about the decision,
No,
right? I don't know if it was the worst decision, but it was just a curious decision at the time, given that Jaden was struggling and Sky was playing well.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I know now we're gonna have the conversation. Should Jaden Epps be in the starting lineup? Like,
he's doing just fine in his role. Like, why change it? I don't know why you change it this time. I think Brad cares about scoring off the bench and have Jaden and Dane there. And I thought Dane was used well in his role tonight. They're going to take advantage of him in that drop coverage at times. He fouled. He tried to handle it too much tonight. He's dribbling too much. He needs to make quicker decisions with the ball. But he can give you scoring. He had 9 points tonight. He can give you rebounds, 6 rebounds tonight. But 16 and 20 minutes probably where he needs to be. But that's a good bench, man. He can bring Jaden Epps, Dane Danger, Sincere Harris, and you hope eventually Ty Rodgers and Luke Good.
Yeah, it's got a chance to be one of the better second units out there, and to be able to understand what you're going to get for some of those guys. Like Sincere, it's very well defined what Sincere is going to bring on a nightly basis. Jaden going to be a scorer, going to be someone that's not afraid to go out there and get his, and Dane, someone you can throw it in the paint. And yeah, I thought this was a good matchup for Dane because Texas doesn't have the size at the 5 to really contest his shots, but with the way they collapse, his dribbling and his almost getting too fancy with it certainly led him to some turnovers, and that was a bit of an issue. And he does need to get better from the free throw line. The airball free throw was a tough one, and Ty's got to figure it out. Someone that offensively you're not going to expect a ton from, and the airball 3 wasn't pretty, but I still think he's capable of more, and maybe it'll just. We've seen it before with freshmen. Just sometimes one game, couple shots go in, maybe it's an effort play, dive on the floor, and something clicks because he's still someone that's so physically tough, great competitor, and he's just fighting it right now.
All right, Derek and I are a little nervous for Saturday. It's an 11 a.m. tip-off against Penn State, a scrappy team. Jalen Pickett's really good. They got some veteran people. I think you have way more talent on the team. You're long, you're athletic in the front court. I think they're going to have a hard time dealing with Hawkins, Meyer, Danger, and obviously Shannon is capable of being the best player in the court wherever he goes. But it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to a tough, hard-fought, resilient win. I keep going back to there's some plays that went against them, Derek. The Hawkins goaltend that was really close, right? Hawkins calling a timeout on RJ's made 3, and then Jaden Epps hits a 3 on the next play. They've shown so much resilience. This is another nice test against a Penn State team that is better than some people thought. I don't know if it's an NCAA tournament team, but it has a chance to be. I think they're going to be fighting for that. I think they're going to be a team that could win half its Big Ten games. So it's going to be a fun test to see how they respond at home, 11 a.m., come back after beating the number 2 team in the country.
Could be a sleepy spot. You hope it's not. You hope they don't overlook them. Penn State is right up there. Actually, you look on KenPom, D1 experience, most in the country, Penn State. Penn State's an older team, guys that have been around a while, and it's a team that can really bomb it from 3. And Illinois was sometimes they break down and give you some open looks from deep, and Penn State with the Seth Lundys, Miles Dredd, yes, they are still playing college basketball. Those dudes have been around a while. They can let it fly, and Jalen Pickett, maybe the best point guard in the Big Ten, going up against Sky and Jaden, and you're just going to continue to say it's going to those are tough battles. Now they're battle tested. They've seen a lot of guys here over the last couple of weeks. Tiger Campbell, Kie Clark. Now you throw in Carr and Hunter, even Jameer Young, really good one. So it shouldn't be anything that they're haven't seen yet. But Pickett is a guard with size that can dime it up. He can hit mid range shots, and he's going to defend as well. So we'll see.
Let's go through some of your questions here on the live YouTube stream. Appreciate you guys checking in late here. I know it's 11 o'clock here in New York City. Matt said, just watch your interview, and I won't argue with the results, but Matthew Myers seems like a really weird dude with a weird mentality. I respect it. I love it. I love having characters to cover. He is a character. Brad Underwood seems to really like him. I know they probably have to prod him at times in practice, but he's very talented, and he doesn't seem like a huge problem, but he's different. He's wired a little bit different, but that's part of being in a team. You don't want everybody to be the same high-strung guy all the time. And to have somebody like that, Derek, his team looked a little tight early on. He was not. It pays to have some different personalities. Of course, you don't want to go too far the other way, right? Mm-hmm. And he doesn't seem like he's being, especially I think since the first couple of games, he has not been a selfish teammate this season. No. And that's, first couple of games kind of hunting his own shot with a bunch of newcomers, guys that have NBA draft potential. You wonder about that sometimes. I have not seen that so far from this team.
No, and even in games when things aren't going his way, he's not one that's gonna pout about it and be selfish. And I think that even we're seeing less and less examples, and maybe to the point even the Maryland game, this recent stretch, he's not like taking plays off defensively. There's not the same type of questioning of, how high is his motor running? How engaged is he? That type of thing, which was evident early on in the season. And I think that it's funny because he is kind of a goofy dude. And even we were talking to Shannon and Coleman at Big Ten Media Days, and I think it was Coleman was like, you want to get mad at him sometimes, but he's just too funny. And he's a guy that's going to keep you relaxed. And he's a guy that's been there before. And one thing is Brad's talked about the process with him and falling in love with, being it every day and bringing it every day and being that type of guy. So you would hope that he doesn't relax from this. You would hope that he just continues to build. But he's a very, he's a different dude, but also one that's won a lot of basketball, knows what it takes. And I mean, he said this team, he's been on a team that's won a national title. He thinks this one is good enough to do the same thing. So he's a big part of that.
What a clutch performance by a true freshman. I know Epps made the free throws, but the confidence he got from Underwood the week before about the quick three and taking that shot every time, brilliant job. Yeah, I thought that was great coaching. Like, even if you don't love the shot, like even if you want to get Shannon the ball or Hawkins the ball at that point, you got to show confidence in your guy. You don't want him thinking about it because he's talented enough to do it. So I didn't love having Epps in there in the moment because Clark was playing well, but it's all paying off. It's all paying off. We talked about that a little earlier. Jake asks, would you start Jaden Epps over Sky?
Not at this point. I wouldn't change. I wouldn't change, what's going well for Jaden down the stretch of the season. Would I be surprised if we're having that conversation? I wouldn't. And I think that I personally trust Jaden more than Sky at this point, but I think there's still reason to be confident in what Sky can ultimately be. It's just, I think Jaden just gives you a little bit more right now, in my opinion.
Jaden's had 31 minutes tonight. Sky had 21. I don't know how
to play.
Yeah, I don't know how much the first 4 minutes mattered. It hasn't been an issue lately. Like the starting games has not been an issue, and Brad usually goes with the hot hand, and then he goes with Jaden late. I think it's more important to have Jaden late than Jaden early. To be honest with you, and Brad has played. I think Jaden Epps. I was going to look it up here, maybe after asking another question, but Jaden was like third or fourth in minutes on the team, so he's playing starters minutes. So I don't worry as much about the first 4 minutes because we've seen teams in the past. It's like you need to start better. This team hasn't been awful at starts. Let's see here. RJ still seems to have no idea how truly awesome he can be yet. That last black he had late was so effortless. I think RJ Melendez has moments, Derek, where it's like, that is a pro. That is a pro. I wrote it in last player grades, though. I think after tonight or the next game, he's going to have more minutes this season than all of last season. I think we forget he's an inexperienced player that's still learning, still progressing, still figuring it all out. But I think he's figured out his role on this team. It's just sometimes I think the motor or the toughness needs to be there all the time. They need consistency out of that, because when he is giving his all defensively and on the glass, he is really good because he can hit shots. I'm not worried about him making shots. He makes free throws when some of this team struggles to make free throws. But when he's locked in defensively with effort and toughness, he's really good. Like, and the fact that he's like your fourth or fifth guy on this team, it's ridiculous.
He's got a lot of ability. I think it was a DB telling us for the game that Jay Billis is pointing out, like, it looks like an NBA type of wing. That's what they look like. And we know that he can, as far as shot making, it's a pure stroke. And then defensively with his length, with his athleticism and everything, like, it just seems like a guy that needs some, I wouldn't say needs, but here recently it's like, okay, some things go wrong early for RJ. Then he decides to turn it on. And then it's like, oh, that's the type of player he can be. It's just, can you bring it all the time? Can you be someone from the very jump that's going to be engaged and locked in? He's still making too many mistakes as far as, where it's like maybe a toughness play on a rebound, or he loses a guy, like he cheats inside and leaves his guy open for three.
Happened a lot of Maryland.
Yeah.
Kmart.
If he can just clean up some of those mistakes and just play up to his standard, as far as who he can be a little bit more. I mean, it's a really talented guy.
I think Jaden Epps has already played more minutes as a freshman than he played all of last year. So he's basically like, he's still got some experience and growing to do. By the way, Jaden Epps fourth on the team in minutes with 23.7, only Sky Clark with 25, Hawkins with 30, Shannon with 31 have more. So he's playing starters minutes, Derek. Like, he's one of the most important players on this team.
It's a lot of minutes. 24 minutes for a freshman off the bench. I mean, that's a lot. That is starter quality. And as I mentioned, regardless, even if you flipped it, you're still going to need 20 minutes a game out of Sky Clark. I don't think you're going to, flip it to where you're going to play Jaden 30, and because we've even seen at times they've played those two together. So, and I'm not by praising Jaden and by saying that, I trust him more than Sky. It's not to say that Sky's been bad. I just think that Sky can, with his 3-point shot, just cut down on the turnovers a little bit. But Jaden is a guy that's really trending in a great direction right now.
Adam said getting Goody back will help stretch the floor even more. Balanced scoring will take the team a long way. We're probably a month away from that, potentially a couple weeks. Luke's in a walking boot still. How do you think that'll go? Because we saw last year it doesn't always go smoothly when a player gets back from missing significant time. With Andre Curbelo, Luke's in a different role, of course, and I don't think we worry about how he'll fit into a team, but it is a difficult thing to ingratiate a guy with a team that's already going to have maybe 15, 16 games at the point Luke Goody's good enough to play.
It's hard to say with a lot of certainty. I mean, shooting's such a rhythm thing for a guy that I know he's been shooting in a boot, and at one point couldn't put too much weight on it, so he's shooting one-legged like the Dirk Nowitzki shots, the fallaways. But we'll see. I mean, we know that Luke is a really good shot maker as far as catch and shoot, and can be someone that there's been a lot of times where you kick out to that corner is wide open, and I think Luke can be someone that really thrives in that. And can he steal some minutes from a Ty Rodgers? Can he cut into some minutes from RJ or whoever it might be? Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of his conditioning getting up, in terms of his getting back into rhythm with his shooting, those are things we don't really know until we see it play out. But I do think that for Luke, in terms of his mental engagement, like, he's not going to make a lot of those mental mistakes where, like, he's supposed to be in this spot on defense. I think I trust Luke to do those type of things and still be someone that Brad trusts a lot. It's just, how does the physical part of it progress?
What's up, Lunkers? Also, St. Dominic says, to quote Bruce Willis from Die Hard, "Welcome to the party, pal." That's basically what Brad Underwood said. By the way, nice Christmas movie reference.
Nice.
Oh, I started a debate there. It was Brad Underwood said, "Welcome to the orange and blue." Matthew Meyer, he thinks him and Matt seem to have a pretty interesting relationship. They can give each other crap, but you get that. It's not going to happen 21 points. And even Terrence Shannon said he knows that, but he's capable. And Terrence has seen it at Baylor. Matt's capable of going off for 20. And I saw somebody write in, Derek, like, NCAA tournament game, not going to play cleanly. You need somebody to step up. You got multiple guys who can take over a game at times. I think that's Terrence. It's Jaden, Meyer, especially scoring the ball. We know Hawkins and Melendez can put their mark on the game in so many different ways. But you got a couple different options of, hey, we need you to get on one here. Matthew Meyer can do that.
How many times do we see that in the tournament where a guy just goes absolutely nuts and can carry a team? And
Brady Manick,
Caleb Love do some of that. I mean, yeah, and he's got that ability, and the fact that he's not going to be, bent out of shape any kind of way about the moment or the fact of what's at stake, because he's been there before. And I think that on that note, I think Brad's done a good job of not putting too much pressure on him, at least externally. Like, he could have called him out and said, hey, he's mentioned, like I said, the process. And I think that there's some underlining tones of like kind of your approach of bringing every day. But I think that Brad's done a good job of managing him and being patient with him and understanding that how much he means and just trying to push the right buttons. And Brad does a good job of trying to understand how to approach different guys. Like, he's very aggressive and like saying RJ needs to do this, needs to rebound more, thought he was soft here. And some guys respond well to that, and some guys need a little bit more of delicacy.
Yeah, a lot of people ask him about Ty Rodgers. Derek, what do you see with him? Like, he's not getting to a rhythm, and it's really easy to defend him right now. I like that he took the three. It's just his jumper has never been his strength. I liked that he took it though. Yeah. Like, at least because we have been at, like, I love that he took a few against Syracuse. It just seems like a guy who's not in a rhythm, not comfortable, not confident right now.
Yeah, I don't want to say that I didn't love that he took it, because I've been wanting him to be more aggressive offensively. I thought he's been capable of more aggressiveness. Maybe if you're open in the corner, just drive it to the rim, try to get some contact. That's a guy that's not built like a freshman. Like, he can be in a game that's physical. Now the problem is he's fouling too much. Defensively, he's being too handsy and not maybe trusting his feet and his reaction time. And then offensively, yeah, he's just not much of an asset. I mean, this is kind of part of the rep on him coming out of high school. Is not much of a scorer. And is he skilled? Yeah. Can he pass? Yep. But they're not playing with the ball in his hands a bunch, and I understand why. And then him as an off-ball guy, like, we saw what it looked like early on. DeMonte Williams, freshman year or even sophomore year, DeMonte Williams, where he's standing on the wing and isn't going to shoot it, and that's just makes Illinois pretty easy to guard when he's in that situation.
Marshall said Meyer would have had 30 with a mullet. Don't disagree. Jay said, surprised no one mentioned the poor officiating. Man, it was bad. Texas got away. More calls. I'm glad I didn't have to talk about officiating too much on another post-game podcast here, Piper. I'm getting a little tired of that. But yes, there were some tough ones. I also thought the charges on Illinois were all legit. Like, they just were out of control on some of those. RJ's got to figure something out with the Euro step. Terrence, I think, was – it's easy against some of these opponents early on to get to the rim and finish. These other teams scout him better. They're more talented. He's got to figure out that counter because he can't just bowl his way, but he's still strong enough to go in there and finish it sometimes. But, yeah, there were a couple calls like that. The goaltend one, different angles look different. I was like, when they first called it, I thought it was no doubt goaltend. Then I saw finally the ESPN, the Jay Billis angle they got. They went over and talked to Jay about it, and that one looked like, oh, that might be a block. I didn't get to see the ultimate call and what they made on TV, but that one was difficult for sure. Like, there were some questionable ones. I think that were more possession ones that looked like they were off Texas and not Illinois.
Yeah, there was the one where Coleman blocked it, and then Terrence saved it back in, and they called it out on Illinois, but they were able to reverse that.
Illinois rule for the win. There you go.
It came in handy finally.
Jamal Walker, it paid off. The suspension still not
hasn't paid off his suspension yet, but yep, that was put to use for Illinois' sake. And yeah, the goaltend was a tough one, and still I don't know with 100% certainty what was the right call. I know that the last angle maybe looked like it was a true block, but as far as the fouls go, Illinois offensive fouls were legit in my opinion, and I think it is a team defensively when things, when people are able to get downhill on you, they're still a little too handsy and definitely fouling.
I saw another one here. It's never been an effort, a question of effort with Meyer. Totally agree with that. Here's the one I wanted to. Andrew kind of sums it up well. So many tools in Underwood's toolbox. and I think he's having so much fun with it. He looks like he's having fun. Like, I know you lose to Maryland, you lose to Virginia. He's talked about, he's even said after tonight, he thinks this team has the best ceiling that he's had. Now, maybe 2 years ago, Io and Kofi together and Trent and all those guys still think that team had a ceiling, Final Four ceiling. Certainly didn't go that way. He loves the potential of this team.
Yeah, I mean, he does. And the fact of playing a new style, having just kind of a clean slate, and not to, he'll say it as far as appreciating, and you can be excited about a new group and just finding out some new stuff and playing a new way, and still appreciate, the Kofi Coburns, the Trent Frazier's, obviously Ios of the world, but to be able to just know that you have a super talented team, super athletic, very versatile, and just go and figure it out. And they still have so much more to piece together. But I think that he's having a blast. The fact that they're still able to win and get some marquee wins. Brad Underwood, by the way, now 12-5 against top 10 teams in his last 17.
That's a ridiculous stat.
Beware if you're a top 10 team squaring off of Brad Underwood, man. That's wow.
Hey, and can we get Illinois to wear more throwback jerseys? This is the first game, I think, this season they've worn throwback jerseys, where the Flying Illini. Did the script come out against Penn State? Maybe that'll liven me up at 11 a.m. It'd been a while, but I love that they did it. I'd love to hear how it went on TV, but Madison Square Garden, for me, was pretty cool. Derek, it's been cool, the venues we've been able to go to so far this season, but really the last couple of years. I got to go to Maui a couple of years ago, but the fact that Illinois is playing in these events against big-time opponents has been a lot of fun. And I just imagine John Starks coming out of the woodwork at some point, because I just remember so many Jordan Starks games when I was here. But what did you think of the Garden? The ceiling was like the cool part, and the lighting is really cool. And just knowing the history of this building is pretty cool, even though it's kind of been a bad basketball team for 20 years.
No, it's awesome. I mean, to appreciate the game and the history of the game, and know how many awesome moments have gone down in here. And mentioning Starks, they got like a poster out there in the hallway of, quote unquote, the dunk of Starks on Jordan and the Bulls. But of course, that wasn't the only dunk in those type of series where Pippen dunked all over Patrick Ewing. And man, what awesome battles those were. But you think back to like Kobe scoring 61 in here, and the Reggie Miller and Spike Lee and all.
I remember Miami Heat Knicks games. Like, they met in the playoffs every year. It was Zoe and Ewing and Riley coming back as the Heat coach. Like, those were phenomenal battles too.
Definitely. And then, I mean, as far as college basketball goes, like the Big East tournament, Kemba Walker coming in here, and it was really, really cool. It feels like, the bright lights, the big stage, all the national media here, and to play in a situation where you got some of the top teams in the country all in one venue, just like Vegas. Once again, we'll go back to it. It kind of feels like a trial run for the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, let's go watch Duke, Iowa. Close this one out. And no, we did not get Sbarro pizza. We got Rose's, which was right next door to it. But yeah, it was good. I might go get another slice tonight. It was pretty good. But thank you for you guys for supporting us and allowing us all to come out here. It's one off the bucket list for all of us, Joey Wagner included. I got to take him on the touristy things this weekend as well. So thank you for allowing us to do that, for supporting us, whether it's on the YouTube channel. Give us a like, subscribe to us as well. Follow us on the podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Rate us and review us. And check out all our content coming to the site. I talked to Matthew Meyer about his big performance. Derek talked to the Epps family. And Joey Wagner's doing a big story on just this team is very different. We know that, but how it's kind of coming together has been a lot of fun to watch. And if they beat Penn State, Derek, I know they'd have 2 losses, but this is probably a top 10 team next week, or close to a top 12 for sure. So this has been a very eventful and learning experience about a team that, again, can beat anybody in the country. We thought we could do that through 9 games so far this season. It looks like that, right? It looks like what Brad Underwood was hoping for.
Right. 2 great wins, no bad losses. I will be curious to see what the result is ultimately of Maryland at Wisconsin tonight. I don't know what that score is right now, but that could maybe determine some things as far as how much they can rise up there in the rankings. But yeah, top 10, top 12.
Wisconsin won.
Okay.
Wisconsin.
Tough to win on the road, man. It's tough.
For Illinois and Indiana to start at at Maryland and at the rack. That's a tough way for the two Big Ten favorites coming into the year to start the season.
What the heck?
You just can't count them out.
And then you beat Maryland. I'm tired of being wrong in my power rankings. I'm just going to retire because Wisconsin makes me look like an idiot every year.
I can't not have them as an NCAA tournament team. I don't know if they'll be good. I don't know if they'll be great, but they're probably going to be top 5 in the Big Ten, and we get it wrong every year, which is kudos to Greg Gardner now, continuing that whole Bo Ryan thing. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Check out all our content coming up. Everybody take care of each other. Have a great night, and we'll talk to you next time right here on the Illini Inquirer podcast.